So many people are still dealing with the chaos that's erupting in Mexico, or some say Mexico, after the Mexican state police or the federal agents stormed in and killed one of the most powerful cartel leaders by the name of El Mencho. And the entire country is run amok. It is literally turning into a war zone as cartels are storming in. They're fighting back against the Mexican state police. There's also U.S. intelligence agencies that are also involved in this, and Canadians, Mexicans, Americans, and other world travelers that are currently reside in Mexico right now, vacationing, are told to stay indoors while the entire country is turned into a war zone right in front of their eyes. So here's a news report coming out of this is from an Australian publication, and here's what they had to say about it.
Fiery scenes erupted on the streets of a major resort city in Mexico following the killing of an infamous drug lord. A shelter-in-place order was issued for the seaside town of Puerto Vallarta in the western state of Jalisco after Nemesio El Mencho Oseguera Cervantes, the leader of the violent Jalisco New Generation Cartel, was killed by Mexican forces. The 59-year-old drug lord, who had a $23.6 million Australian bounty on his head, was injured in a clash with soldiers in the town of Tapalpa and died while he was flown to Mexico City. Jalisco Governor Pablo Lemus Navarro said that much of the state had been put in a code red following the operation. Mexican officials said cartel thugs began setting blazes throughout Jalisco to block federal forces during the raid. The chaos has travelers in the Pacific Ocean vacation spot of Puerto Vallarta holed up in their hotels as cars and barricades burn in the streets. Reportedly, there was gunfire at Guadalajara International Airport, the country's third busiest airport. Oseguera Cervantes, a former cop, became one of Mexico's most feared cartel bosses following the arrest and conviction of Joaquin El Chapo Guzman by U.S. authorities. U.S. President Donald Trump in 2025 declared the cartel an international terrorist organization and pressured Mexico to crack down.
This gang, along with MS-13 and the bloodthirsty Mexican drug cartels, as foreign terrorist organizations. They are now officially in the same category as ISIS, and that's not good for them.
Not good. Not good. But hey, few editing tricks here and there, that could be a killer Expedia ad, folks. So, it is all-out war in Mexico right now, and a lot of Canadians are currently down there. There's a lot of obviously elderly people, they call them the snowbirds, the ones that flee Canada during the winter months because they don't want to deal with the snow and cold and whatnot. So they go to a place like Mexico or some southern territory to get away from the winter. And of course, now that this war has broken out with the cartels and the federal agents, they're stranded in Mexico here. So this is from the Vancouver Sun. Says what to do as a Canadian stranded in Mexico as cartel violence ensues. Tens of thousands of Canadian tourists remain trapped in Puerto Vallarta as violent clashes impact flights in and out of the region. So they say Canadians stranded in Puerto Vallarta, sorry if I'm mispronouncing it, And other parts of Mexico, due to the recent flare-up of drug cartel-related violence, are entitled to refunds for flights canceled and some financial compensation for longer hotel stays, according to travel and passenger rights advocates. Violent clashes began this weekend in the Mexican state of Jalisco, which includes the cities of Puerto Vallarta and, oh my God, Guadalajara. I think that's how you say it. After Mexican authorities killed the drug leader, the leader of the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, Certas also goes by the name of El Mencho. Vehicles, businesses, and gas stations were set on fire in apparent retaliation after the Mexican Certain of National Defense released a statement on Sunday saying El Mencho had been injured during an army operation in nearby Jalapa, Jalisco, and later died of his injuries. A shelter-in-place order requiring people to stay indoors was still in effect for Monday for Jalisco and Nayarit. The Canadian government stated that criminal groups have set up roadblocks with burning vehicles in several cities in various parts of Mexico. There have been shootouts with security forces and explosions, including on roads and highways connected affected areas to Mexico City. Here's what travelers are needed to know. While Puerto Vallarta International Airport is still open, most airlines, including major Canadian carriers, have canceled all flights in and out of the city. Some services, such as ride-hailing and public transportation, are starting to open up again, according to Will McKeer, Executive Director for the Travel Health Insurance Association of Canada. That and the airport remain open are fairly good signs indicating flights could resume very soon for Canadians stranded in the city. The actions the military is taking here is more subdued than they could have been. We know that there are well-armed combatants that are down here, and as a result, it was not as serious as perhaps it certainly could have been had they gone to the resort properties and decided to show their displeasure that way, as opposed to more civil disobedience and setting cars on fire. However, that doesn't change the fact that Canadians who are down there are probably more concerned that they were getting told to shelter in place by the Canadian government. So, yeah, it's a sticky situation, folks. It's a sticky situation. It is kind of interesting, though, that they're telling people to hunker down in place with something like this. But when it came to COVID, when it came to this disease that was breaking out and could infect anybody, and oh my God, we didn't know where it came from, they were sending charter jets out to rescue people in an instant. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me. But obviously, the Canadian government doesn't really make sense in their decisions. So here's Yedgewave saying, we have received exclusive footage from Edmontonians, sheltering in a hotel, showing the situation in Puerto Vallarta, where the cartel is reportedly taking the city hostage. WestJet and Air Canada flights have been canceled. So here are some people from Edmonton who went south for the winter, are vacationing in this city, watching the city implode during this violent uprising. So let's look at this. So yeah, it's not looking pretty, folks. It's not looking pretty. Here's another article. It says Canadian citizens in Puerto Vallarta told to shelter in place as violence erupts after cartel leader's death. Global Affairs Canada says there are just under 5,000 Canadians in Jalisco State where cartel boss Nemcio Ruben Osguera Cervantes was killed in law enforcement raid. So just under 5,000. That's according to Global Affairs Canada. Just under 5,000 Canadians are in this territory right now as the raids are breaking out, as this is going on. But there's a lot more to this story than I think people realize. So, as Mario Naufal points out, CJNG, so that's the Mexican federal agents. Those are the people who shot and killed this drug leader, supposedly. But here's where the backstory doesn't align to the situation that we're being told on the mainstream media, because as Mario Naufal points out, CJNG, Mexican cartel leader El Mencho, seemingly ordering police officers to stand down, calling them pigs and threatening to kill them. They obeyed instantly and apologized. This is effing wild. Glad this guy is dead. So, the cartels in Mexico are that powerful. Ladies and gentlemen. And this has been going on for years. And it's because the fact this has been going on for years, because nothing's been properly done, because nothing's been enforced, because they're not actually willing to shut down this multi-billion-dollar industry. And that's one of many reasons why the cartel industry has not fallen flat on its face, because it is a moneymaker. They're paying off politicians. They're mentioning about how the Mexican president, Claudia Sheinbaum, is connected to the cartels. I believe that. In the same way our government here in Canada is connected to drug traffickers and human traffickers and cartels within in Canada's borders. So, no doubt, there is a huge slew of corruption involving with this, to the point that the cartels, the ringleader of the cartels, can order the police to stand down, and the police are just obeying. The police are just like lapdogs to this guy. And that's from a phone call. That he mentioned out here. So, here's a bit of it here. I'm going to turn down the volume because it's in Spanish here. So here it is here. It starts off by the drug lord saying Delta 1. And then police says, yo, who's speaking? I love it how an officer has to sound like he's hip, how he has to sound like a gangster. Yo, what's up, my peeps? Don't know why that is.
Delta 1. Hey, ¿quién habla?
Look here, you son of a
Mira
bitch.
bien,
It's
hijo de tu
Mencho,
puta madre.
dumbass.
Soy Mencho, güey.
You better tell your
Relaja
effing
tu
people to leave us alone. It's
puta
Mencho,
gente a la
dumbass.
verga. Soy Mencho, güey.
Get your
Relaja
effing
tus
men to
putas
fall
partidas,
back,
no te
or
voy a
I'm going
partir
to
tu madre,
F
10
you
huevos,
up
tu
and
bola
your
de
whole
perros,
squad.
pendejo.
I have 30 of you effers located and identified. I'll even kill your effing dogs if you don't chill out, bro. So he's saying this to the cops. He's saying this right to the cops in a phone call.
30 güeyes. Hasta tus putos perros te van a matar si no te relajas, güey.
What do you think
¿Cómo
about
ves?
that? He says. Police respond, you got it, sir. I'll tell the police squads to fall back. The police just cave like that to this guy. Just immediately cave to this guy. A notorious drug lord. Just fell like that. You better get the hell away from me, or I'm going to go after you and your precious dogs. Okay. Yes, sir. 3 bags full. Wow. Just like that. Just completely folded and caved. Just like that.
Ya está, señor. Ahorita los bajo. Oh, no, cuelgue.
He says, no. You better not hang up, MFer. I'm going to get your location right now, dumbass.
Hijo de la verga, te tengo ubicados en Chacala, güey.
No, sir, I'm not
No, no,
hanging
no,
up. I was just saying I'll be there. Get your shit together, dumbass. Didn't you guys agree to work with us, effer? So, he's admitting that the cops are working with the cartels. He just admitted that in this phone call. The cops are working with the cartels. That's why he's angry. That's why he's telling them to back off. And they're so accepted to say, yeah, we'll do that. because the cops are being bribed. There's corruption between the cartels they're supposed to be stopping and law enforcement. Hence why Mexico is in the shape that's in right now, which is why I agree that Claudia Sheinbaum, the Mexican president, is also complicit. The same way our government's complicit. The same way America's complicit. That's why this is occurring. That's why this has been going on for decades. And why, unfortunately, it's never going to end. Not with Donald Trump, not with Mark Carney, not with anyone in power. It's going to keep on running amok because of how corroded the situation is, how corrupted. And we're going to show how corrupted it is later on in the segment here, but here's some more. We agree not to F you. We agree not to F you guys, and in return, you want to F with us? No, sir. I'll tell them to back off. Like ghetto Oliver Twist right here. No, sir. No, sir. I'll sit back at the table. Look, tell your sons of bitches to fall back because all of you happily accept my money, you pigs. Yes, sir. Tell me right now. Get your shit together or you'll be the first one that I'll make an example of. No, sir. No, sir. We won't have any more problems. Watch yourself because I'll spill blood at a moment's notice. You already know what's up. No, sir. There's no problem. If you guys want to be friendly, then you be friendly. If not, go F yourselves then. He's saying it right to the cops, and the cops are bending the knee to the drug cartel. To the drug cartel. The police officers are. So this goes to show you how massively corrupted, how this has been going on for so long, why there's a war breaking out about this, and why all this seems really suspicious. And once again, just like wars, just like anything, it's usually the fact that they're paying both sides of the aisle, and we are the victims that get caught up in it. So right now, there's a war breaking out between the cartels and law enforcement. Guess what? Both massively corrupted, both playing each other off, both, complicit to the government that's allowing for this corruption to happen, that's allowing for this to continue on. And the people that were just vacationing in Mexico, of course, are the victims. Now they're witnessing this in real time. Of course, some people are making the best of it. This guy, Lance Video, says, Canadian is caught stealing amongst the chaos in Mexico. First they cheat, now they steal. I thought they told us they were morally better than us. So here is again, Canadian citizen in the elbows up psyop who's looting a convenience store in the middle of a war zone. Because, hey, why not?
Got an American right here, guys.
I'm Mexican, and you should be ashamed to live to doing all those things. I'm pretty sure
He's got his American right there. Got a phone and he's recording me. It's American. American. Oh my God. That's just sad. That is just sad. I can't believe that's how backwards this is. How backwards all this is. It really is just a giant psyop. But as I told you, the corruption to all this goes really, really deep. So in the midst of all this, in the midst of, the chaos that's happening in Mexico, that's being plastered all over TV, this was going on. And I don't think this got as much attention as it should. So the gray zone, particularly Max Blumenthal here, highlighted the fact that a top ex-DEA official and veteran CIA asset were busted in a $12 million scheme to launder cash and procure drones for Mexico's Jalisco cartel. So a federal agent, an ex-federal agent of the United States is working with the cartels in a $12 million scheme So while there's fighting going on in Mexico, they forget to tell you that, oh yeah, American federal agents are complicit with this. That's also why cartels have been ramping up. That's why they've been in power for so long. That's why a guy like El Mencho can yell and scream at the cops, and the cops are so scared shitless that they're willing to bend the knee towards the cartels. That's why it's happening. And this is going on for decades. Max Blumenthal visits a Northern Virginia home raided by federal agents and wonders who America's drug warriors are really working for. So here's him reporting at the house where this raid occurred. And again, mainstream media didn't really report on this. All the focus is on Mexico. All the focus is on Mexico being the sinister chaos that's in right now. But they're not telling you that your federal agents are working for these criminals. They're working in courts with the criminals to ramp this up, to ramp up the war on drugs, because it's all about corruption. It's all about money laundering. They're criminal cartels all through and through. And it's about controlling and fear-mongering over you. You are the victim, no matter what outcome comes to be. So let's hear this.
I'm standing here in Oakton, Virginia, in front of what is said to be the house of Paul Campo, which was raided last Thursday by federal agents following an indictment from the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Southern District of New York. Campo is alleged to have participated in a $12 million scheme to assist the Jalisco Cartel of Mexico acquire fentanyl production capacity, as well as weaponized drones, explosives. And Campo happens to be the former Drug Enforcement Agency Deputy Director for Finance. So this is a pretty significant bust. But even more significant is the fact that his partner in this alleged scheme, Robert Sensei, is a veteran CIA operative whose involvement in CIA schemes goes all the way back to Reagan's October surprise, who has participated in multi-million-dollar frauds to allegedly, apparently, purchase military-grade helicopters for a certain Middle East country. And so here we are in a white-collar suburb where high crimes are being carried out to assist drug cartels in Mexico. And yet Donald Trump and his administration are killing people in speedboats all the way in Venezuela in a phony drug war, while our chickens are coming home to roost with a CIA asset just last week shooting 2 National Guardsmen, a former CIA asset in a Afghan death squad supporting the United States. So
So, this is why. This is why cartels still operate. This is why they're still fooling you with the war on drugs, which is all manufactured. It's all complicit to seize control of particularly poor Black and brown communities. That was the whole intent of it. That's why they raided, poor communities in impoverished neighborhoods. They didn't go after the celebrities. They didn't go after the party animals. They didn't go after, politicians' sons and daughters that were partaking in drugs. They went after the poor people. And they kept the cartels in power because of this. Because the federal agents were making a quick buck off this. So this has been going on for many, 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 many years. That's why a guy like El Mencho is able to just scream at the cops, and the cops are like, yeah, okay, I'll bend the knee to you, whatever you want, sir. You want your dick sucked off? Yeah, I'll do that. Okay. Unbelievable. And of course, they're never going to tell you this part of the story, because when you know this part of the story, then you'll understand that the cartels are engineered by the CIA to fearmonger, to bait people, to turn Mexico on its head. This is the whole point. Just like how terrorists were developed by the CIA, the Mujahideen was created by the United States to fearmonger, to oppress Middle Eastern territories so that eventually we go and invade them and throw them over the cliff. That is the whole point of this. They're never going to tell you this. They're never going to tell you that the worst of the worst is your own government. Not just the cartels in Mexico, not just randos in Middle Eastern countries. The worst of the worst, the real terrorists of the world is your own government. The worst of the worst. And they don't look like terrorists because they wear fancy suits and live in, nice, white collar neighborhoods that you never heard of. I'm sure, it's probably a gated community as well. You wouldn't suspect them as a terrorist, but that's what they are. Because they're funding it, they're creating it, they're orchestrating it, and they're making you into a sucker. So here's also, this is from a place called The Antagonist. The Antagonist magazine. They did an article about this. It says, U.S. weapons flood the Caribbean, arming gangs and cartels. A new report highlights how U.S. weapons continue to flood the Caribbean, landing in the hands of gangs and cartels. That was from December of last year, right before Christmas. So they know what's happening. They know what's happening. They know that they're instructed to do this. That the cartels are not just getting military-grade equipment on their own. That they're paying the cartels to do this, to continue to orchestrate. And then they're going after them saying, look at us, we're defeating the cartels, so you got to love us. They're paying both sides off. It's manufactured. Everything you're seeing is manufactured. How about this? How about the fact that Israel plays a part in this? Israel, I kid you not, from Haaretz. How Israeli firearms fall into the hands of Mexican drug cartels. Israel sold Mexico over 24,000 guns and rifles from 2006 to 2018. A new report conducted as part of a global investigation reveals, with little oversight, Israel has inadvertently helped fuel violence in the country. Our great ally, just is selling weapons for over a decade to violent drug cartels that are inflicting pain, violence, and lethal overdoses to Americans. Our greatest ally. It's amazing. It's amazing that, with all this coming out, we're finally, as Max Munthal said, the chickens are coming home to roost. That we're finally getting this information. This has been going on for decades. They played you like suckers. Here's Politico. U.S. intel-backed operation that led to the killing of Mexican drug lord. The CIA was instrumental in the removal of the drug kingpin known as El Mencho, said one person briefed in the effort. So, again, the United States is playing both sides of this. The United States wants to take credit in the fact that, look at us, we took down a major kingpin of the cartel. The cartel that we've been feeding and giving a bunch of weapons to and giving them money. How we've been bribing them to keep an operation, how we kept them afloat, how we're paying both sides. Yeah, that's in cartel. Just like we pay the terrorists and then we go over there to fight a war on terror. How convenient. How convenient. Ladies and gentlemen. That is unbelievable, folks. And like I said, the victims are us. The victims are the people that are vacationing right now, that are stuck in the midst of this, that are being misled, they're being misinformed, because they're only telling the fact that, oh, look, chaos is erupting in Mexico, in these cities. It's the cartels that are running wild. What they're not telling you is how the cartels became this powerful in the first place. Why was El Mencho so powerful that one phone call, after, when the police were trying to arrest this guy in the first place, the police immediately backed down? Why is this guy so powerful? Why is this guy allowed to operate? Oh, that's right. Because CIA pays him off, the U.S. Intel, the DEA, they're all massively corrupted. All corrupted to keep this afloat. And the victims, the true victims, is us that's being misled, misinformed, and being told something, not told the whole story about this. And it's leading into violence. It's leading into explosions, people's safety, people's lives are at risk there. They don't know if they're going to get home safely in this eruption. It's absolutely crazy. And right now we're supposed to believe the Trump administration is doing their part by blowing up fishing boats. Look, we're stopping, Venezuelan cocaine, except Venezuela doesn't produce cocaine. You're bombing fishing boats that are there to get fish for the country of Venezuela to feed the people because you want to overthrow and take over that country. So you stop the nourishment of that country, like they're doing in Cuba, just like they're doing elsewhere. All about control, folks. All about control.